Mr. Reese, no.
I'm telling you, man, is that a pastor or a player?
Player.
Call to order. We're gonna bless this meeting. And we're gonna entertain a motion to go to executive session. Madam City Manager, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Mr. Rickman,
Here.
Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
Mr. Duval,
Present.
Ms. Devine, Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mayor Benjamin.
Here. Reverend, you want to open this up?
Well, let me yield to her. I'm not in good emotional shape today. My mother has been in the hospital for the last 4 months, and of course, it's been a journey having to deal with Alzheimer and other medical issues. I don't mind praying, but I'm gonna yield to my colleague Howard.
Okay.
If you do that, not that I can't pray. I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around what we need to do today.
Absolutely.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we ask your blessing upon this group, this beautiful day. Be with Ed and his family in their journey through life's journey. Bring wisdom to this council that we make good decisions for this city. For we all ask it in your name. Amen.
Amen. All right. Got everybody here. We have a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we adjourn to executive session to discuss negotiations, instrument, proposed contractual arrangement pursuant to 30-4-70A2 for intergovernmental agreement, Cumberland versus City of Columbia and Dreer.
So legal advice for Lloyd and Dreer.
Legal advice.
Okay. All right. Move. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion with the previous question? Clerk,
I was
call
gonna say,
it.
do I need to mention that I won't participate on jury discussion?
Okay. Yes, ma'am. With the previous question, clerk, call the roll.
I think he just said that.
Aye.
Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Ms. Devine. Here. Aye. Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin.
Aye.
saw one of your emails. I didn't.
You know how many messages, like, you know how many messages I get? And that's not one that I put in the,
But the people really see that as being legitimate.
yeah.
The one that bothers me besides Messenger is I have my
But Diane is
city phone telephone number sent to my, this number. I didn't realize that text messages didn't get sent. So we charge my city to keep it charged.
You're good.
Too many communiques.
Okay, man.
Too many communiques.
Good luck with that.
Then you're gonna leave us, we're gonna have a legal question. Okay, Teresa.
Mr. Mayor.
Teresa's on duty.
Mr. Mayor,
She got a year older.
See,
are you gonna do like a formal coming back in?
Yeah. This motion, is there a motion to come out of executive session?
so moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion, move for special clerk call the roll.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Davis, Mayor Benjamin.
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We will move into our fiscal year 2017, 2018, continued discussions of our proposed budget. Well, actually, we're gonna start with stormwater and water and sewer, so I'm just, for sake of time, gonna go ahead and call up Joey and Clint and Robert, and whichever order you all wanna go, Clint. Clint, is this is different than what we've done before.
Yes, ma'am, it is. It
Okay.
is. So we've got some new slides to share with you.
Joey, are y'all starting with stormwater? You starting with storm? Okay. Okay.
Council members, city manager, Mr. Mayor, thank you for having us here again.
Welcome back, Rob.
I know we've been through this process, a few times, which is a good thing. And what I'd like to do is just move forward to the scenarios because the baseline information is about the same. So, going to the scenarios. The first scenario we have here is a scenario that goes about funding the complete $93 million CIP over 5 years. It requires increases from FYO 18 through 22, and it utilizes a combination of cash, revenue bonds to finance the program. All 5 scenarios we have here go about utilizing cash and revenue bonds. Scenario 2, it's a $12.3 million program that requires a one-time increase. Scenario 3, it's a $20 million program. Scenario 4, it's a $40 million program, and Scenario 5, it's a $64 million program. And they all require one single rate increase in FYO 18. What are these increases? So for Scenario 1, it's a 20% increase in FYO 18, which aggregates to $8.16. Scenario 2, it's about a dollar adjustment, so it's a 15% increase, which aggregates to about a $7.82. Scenario 3, it's a 21% increase, which aggregates to about a $8.23 increase, or not increase rate, I'm sorry. Scenario 4, it's a 37% increase, which and that was the $40 million CIP, which aggregates to $9.32. And Scenario 5, it's a 73.5 increase, which is about a $5 increase.
You go back one slide.
Yes, sir.
You know my question's going to be.
I think so, but I'll wait for you to ask.
So help me understand the.
Double it.
Huh? Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
explain the difference between 4 and 5.
Okay. So what's happening is there are a few things going on in Scenario 5 that prevents that doubling effect, as we would put it. Because we're increasing the program and implementing, $64 million program as compared to $40 million, another increment of O&M, right? Operating and maintenance that's related to implementing the bigger program is modeled and implemented as a part of Scenario 5. So an additional increment of O&M is modeled as a part of Scenario 5 because now you have a bigger program, you need more resources and facilities.
$16 million worth of O&M?
No, and I'll get there. I'll get there. No.
Okay.
So we add it's about $1 million and somewhere thereabout to your operating expenses. Additionally, because you're implementing a higher program, you have additional debt service. So now before, for example, you may have had $1 of revenue, for example, and that dollar of revenue was split between O&M, 30 cents, debt service, 60 cents, and other 40 cents, for example. Now O&M is going up to 40 cents. Debt service is also going up. So that dollar is paying for less because you're implementing a bigger program. As a part of the program, we're still abiding by the same financial metrics, or debt service coverage metrics, making sure we have some cash to maintain a healthy fund. So now that dollar is having to fund more expenses and more resources. If the program were to double, the only way it would double is by keeping O&M at the same level it was at 40, and keeping debt service, for example, at the same level it was at 40. And for debt service, that's not the case. And then if you're going to increase the program, you're going to have the resources and the capacity as an organization to implement the program. So the main causes of it not doubling up is because you're utilizing the revenues to fund additional O&M and debt service.
So go
back.
Forward again and then come back again?
Yes, sir. So the additional revenues, one other point, it's not totally just funding the entire $80 million, as you know. You're going to float the bonds and then you pay for it through debt service. So because you have to, make sure we meet our financial metrics and pay for the additional debt service and O&M, that's the impact it has as it relates to the ability to fund the program.
Bugging you going back and forth. So 21% increase would give us $20 million to do projects, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir.
Taking that up to 37% would give us $40 million. But doubling the $40 million would only give us 64.
Yes,
Doubling the 37.
Yes, sir. And what happens is you have your debt service coverage metric. You still have to hit that same target to meet that metric. So now your expense base is growing, but you still have to meet the same metric. So you're doubling up on the ability of revenues to fund the program, even though you're doubling up on the increase. The value of the increase is going down as it relates to implementing the program because you're implementing a bigger program and trying to make sure you have the capacity as an organization to implement the program.
So, Mr. Mayor, at the end of our discussion list, and that's why I was asking you all the question, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to get closer to?
93 million.
Exactly. So that's why I was asking you that, and when I was saying I wasn't quite sure that by just adding $5, that was gonna have the effect that you were intending, so. We did ask staff to also run some scenarios that gets you closer, if that's what you're trying to achieve, to the 93 million. So he has some other
Yeah, I just,
areas.
I'd love to see those other scenarios.
what if you just, I
Let
don't
me
know,
show.
I'm sitting here just looking at.
I was expecting it to be
increase-
more para pursuit. I'm stretching my mind to.
So the question was if you want to achieve 80 million, right? Then what would be the increase?
I'm sorry, Dan, you were saying something. I apologize.
I'm just trying to understand why you couldn't average out the increase over a 5-year period and still get the
We get back to
9.3.
the other issue of this council just holding the line. I mean, obviously, if we have a program that we're willing to commit to for 4 or 5 years, and we got a program, if we don't have collective commitment to delivering on that program, that's the larger.
Yeah, but if
concern.
you're doing the program tied to a bond, then, I mean, that's what you do currently today anyway with all the other bondings. You're committing it to the same structure, right?
But
Committing
not
to a
contingent
multi-year
upon,
structure.
not contingent
Don't buy
upon
future accounts.
annual increases. Like when we did a hospitality tax bond, it was, we know what our debt
Based on-
service is gonna be, and we weren't.
What about water and sewer? That's not an annual increase.
Cause
And
we're
you
not.
come back every time and you all vote on them every time.
But let's see what we got. Do we have
Right,
hard copies of this?
we
'Cause
don't
I
increase it every
apologize.
time, like, we didn't increase for
Are there hard
last
copies
year,
of this right here?
But
I don't have my
our bond, you
binoculars
still
on.
have the ability to do debt service because you still have a fund that
Do
you
we
go
have
to.
some hard copies of it?
But please walk through it, but,
Okay. So what we have here is, so in total for scenario 5, we ran 4 scenarios, with the aim of getting to the 93 million. So I'll just start by explaining the program we have here. So scenario 5A, which is scenario 5, as stated in the presentation, funds the program for 64 million. Scenario, and it's a one-time increase, and it's a combination of bonds and cash. Scenario 5B goes about funding the program for funding the $93 million program, but you would have multiple year increases. So for example, the first year, you would have 73.5. And then
That's a $5 increase to anybody who's watching on television.
I'm sorry. And
Just
that's
to make sure.
I'm sorry, and that's a $5 increase. And then in the preceding years, the following 4 years, which is considered the forecast period, you'd have an increase of 6.25 per year, and that would get you to.
You get back to the same number you had before.
Correct.
we're going to go back to scenario 1.
And if you look at the unit rates, you'll see that in getting to that 93 million, the actual unit rates get to about $15 per ERU, which by the end of the forecast period, it aggregates to about 16.4, somewhere in that range with regard to total revenues the system produces over the 5 years. Let me just jump back, Mr. Mayor, to the scenarios we had previously. Because for the first scenario we presented, which was scenario 1, that went about funding the entire 93 million, you see we still got to that $15 per ERU, but we just got there in a different way. Okay? That becomes the key number as it relates to the revenues and where you want to go. And depending on when you get the rate increase in, there can be some time value of money savings where you could get to that 16 million, but because you implemented a rate increase earlier, it may not get to 15.2, for example.
Y'all help me understand in terms of public finance and also not violating our responsibilities not to bond future councils. How can we not covenant in some way to a 5-year program with program rate increases? I know, I think we keep asking the same question, and
But we never got an answer. I'm not sure, and that's what I said last week. I said, I guess.
talking to the
it's
finance
really
people and the
more of a-
lawyers, just in case no one
Yeah,
knows I'm
it's a
talking to.
season question.
Jeff said point down here.
It's a season- yeah,
I don't know.
It's a Michael season question.
I tell you, I am still for finding a solution to get the 93. As I go through these neighborhoods and meet with everybody and the increased stormwater issues that every homeowner in the city is facing, the relief that would come off of it would be just tremendous. I mean, how many routes do y'all have to deal with? How many clogged drains? How much, roads not, being shaped? All the things that we think about that need to be addressed in the stormwater and the effects that they're having on each homeowner, and let alone where we need detention ponds and all the other things. I don't know how which path we choose, but I think we ought to go for it. I think we ought to make the investment and fix it.
So the scenario 5C goes about funding a program of 80 million.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Can we, I guess when I'm at, and I know we got legal counsel here, man, I guess we'll go waive privilege. Is there a way in which we can bind future councils by committing to the issuance of public debt? This series of rate increases anticipated in scenario
I guess
one.
it was about council's question, it's a Teresa question, but I'm wondering if it was a bond structure, it would be a season question.
They're saying it's not a bond
It's
structure.
not a bond structure.
That's what she just said.
Mr. Mayor, just so that I'm clear, you're asking if there's a way to go about passing these rate increases, or is the question, is there a way to go about getting the revenues but not tie future council members to these rate increases? That's the question?
They're
I think
asking
you've
if
answered all the
they-
questions we've asked of you,
Yeah.
except I still don't believe those last numbers, but I'm just mentioning.
I think.
Yeah, yes.
It's more of a legal question. It's the rule that we can't bind future councils, but obviously if we're going to commit to a program, we want to make sure it's not scenario one, but only the first year, the fourth year, and the fifth year. We want to make sure that we're going to commit ourselves to the $93 million program. And if there is some way legally to commit ourselves, we want to make sure. I think there's a general consensus that it's worth doing.
And I think the question of you and was it David
Dave,
last time was that inherent in them choosing the $93 million program that may have some future increases, was it related to bond covenants in any way? I mean, because if it is, just by virtue of them voting on it now, then it's incumbent almost or inherent upon future councils that it was gonna be an automatic thing.
Let's make sure our intent. The only problem is that if we're going to issue, five different public offerings, we could screw that program up pretty easily. Duval?
Robert, couldn't we solve this problem for the mayor by going with 5C is, let's see, 5A is what we're on now? Is that,
No,
That's
5D would get you what you want with the one-time increase.
what's the $5 increase?
A and B.
Oh, okay.
5A.
Okay, 5A gets us $64 million,
Correct.
and the mayor wants 93.
Correct.
So what if
The
we,
mayor wants all the programs funded.
what if we did 5A, got the $64 million, and then in fiscal year 2021, put another $20 million on there to get him up to his 93.
That could be an option, but that would just be a derivative or another 5B.
As a matter of fact, we can't get the projects out of the door the first couple of years anyhow, so you're cranking up using that $64 million, gearing up your staff, gearing up your support team, to be able to put these projects out the door so we can see in 2020 or 2021 how much more we can bond and then do another vote then.
May I add one?
You count on a whole lot of grace and mercy. We're still gonna be here in 2021. You know that, right? I'm talking about breathing. I'm talking about upright. I'm not talking about elections. Robert,
That's the reason I don't want to go the 5-year route, because I don't think we can get this council to vote 5 years in a row for an interim.
I think you need to figure out a way that you can put the program in place, that we can vote to make it happen, and that people know that there's a plan, and it's laid out, and it's gonna get completed. Because I think if you only do part of it, there's a chance you'll never get it done. Somebody will switch priorities, and, you know, who knows?
Pinky
So
Pie promise.
5G gets you there. It ends up being almost an $8 increase. versus
$7.97.
$5. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Please, Robert, once you finish.
Okay, so coming back to your initial question as it relates to what it means, as it relates to bonding. So if you're going to market, and as a utility, a general utility, you have rate covenants that you have to abide by, and we all know. And the program we're putting in place here is abiding by the covenants that, as a utility, you currently have established to make sure, you know, you're responsibly managing the financial resources of the utility. So while you may look at the program and say, okay, we're going to go to market, we probably haven't done stormwater bonds, for example. The program that's put in place here and the infrastructure that's supporting this program is promoting meeting those financial metrics that then do become a part of your bond covenant. And as you highlighted in the last meeting, if the goal is to go to market and take advantage of some of the current interest rates, right? The programs you have here go about responsibly funding the stormwater program and highlighting a long-term plan to implement the projects, the capacity, and the resources required to serve the customers, your existing customers. Mr. Mayor?
He still doesn't believe.
I'm not lying. I'm actually trying to see. I can barely see the. All right.
The big thing here is, you know, if we brought a program and it doubled up, right, and we said yes, the big thing we're trying to do here is as the consultant is be responsible in presenting and simulating what will happen. And the big thing here that's driving not doubling up and getting to that 64, utilizing 5A as compared to 5D, is the fact that as you increase the program, some of your operating costs implicitly will increase.
Seems to be significantly higher.
Yeah.
We're doing
But-
$7 million a year.
We can't say O&M goes up so much, but we also can't get projects out the door. I just don't believe that.
But then again, you're gonna have a period of time in there that your O&M is not gonna go up because you just replaced all that. So, I mean, I didn't see that played into that scenario yet either.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but that becomes a lagging, in my opinion, lagging indicator because, yes, you're right. When you do implement the program and you start to put the projects in the ground, your O&M should start tapering down depending on the type of project.
Some of it, but it will increase because you got repairs. But right now, we're Band-Aiding everything, and so when you Band-Aid something 10 times over, it costs you 5 times more.
Yeah, I don't know if you're band-aiding it, but what I will say is you still need to put in the infrastructure on day one, which will become somewhat of a more fixed type of O&M so that you can properly manage the program, and that's what's
Look,
happening here.
But the picture that we keep missing in this is not just the cost right there. It's the cost that everybody else is feeling outside of this. The constituents, if it's flooding, property damage, the road damage that we see and all the other infrastructure. I mean, you start to add all those ancillary costs of, if we don't do this, what it's gonna continue, I think it gets even higher.
I hear you, and
All right, so what else we,
Are you not proposing to stay with the $5?
No, I think we need
I still like
to finish
scenario
stormwater.
one.
So if y'all have project information to talk about, I think we need to do that now.
That was most of mine. I can say.
All right, y'all ready to keep moving?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what Dana and I'd like to do is kind of walk through the different funding options for for stormwater and water and sewer. We've got prepared for both, but I know stormwater is really the topic we're talking about right now. We've got the topics broken out to where we can talk about the funding options, which we're not going to spend any time on that, but we want to talk through project life cycle, and Dana is going to explain about the projects that we have in our CIP, so we can talk about the $20 million CIP, 40, 64, $93 million, what the projects are, and where we are currently with those projects, and what to expect over the next 5 years, should we, depending on what scenario we
Can
go.
we talk about 93 first?
But we've got it set up with the 20 million as the base, and then we kind of build off of that.
That
So-
might be your basis, that's not my basis.
Okay. We'll build up to the 93. I mean, we can do either or.
You gotta go 20 to get to 93.
Well, the way we have it set up is
I always
20 is the
start at
base, and
100
we-
wherever I start.
Okay.
They've got them listed here, 20.
I know that.
So these are the
Howard.
scenarios, and I'm not going to repeat the different scenarios. Robert's already gone through the scenarios, but basically, we're going to concentrate on the 20 million, 40, 64, and the $93 million scenario. But I think it's prudent that we talk about the life cycle. You know, we've talked about this with all about water and sewer. We talked about, large water and sewer projects, stormwater projects are the same. There is a life cycle for a project. And where we are with stormwater projects is because we don't have a large capital fund right now to do large projects, we're at the very early stage of the majority of these large projects. So we want to make sure everybody understands that, with no matter what scenario we go with, if we do, projects to address flooding at Whaley in Maine, projects to address flooding in Shandon, projects to address flooding in 5 Points. All of these projects, we're at the very early stage because we've done the engineering studies, we've determined what the potential solutions are, but because we didn't have the funding, we didn't move to the stage of design or property acquisition or permitting or anything. So as far as the life cycle call, where we are with the project life cycle on this chart, we're over here on this side for the majority of the projects, basically at the beginning. And depending on the project, it could be a 1-year life cycle, or majority of these are probably going to be 3-year life cycle. So it could be year 2 or 3 before we start to see any real dirt turning. And Dana's going to walk through some of the major projects to kind of give you an idea where we are. But some of the things to consider with these is, all of these projects, we're dealing with permitting from the Corps of Engineers. We're dealing with railroad crossings. We're dealing with property acquisitions where we have to either work with the university, we have to work with private property owners. It's gonna deal a lot with us having cooperation from our customers, but also cooperation from those who share these same problems with the stormwater flooding. So all of those, it's very important that, that,
Managing expectations.
yes, sir.
Are we, so are any of the projects shovel-ready? I mean, we've been,
We have some, Dana can talk through that, she can cover that, but some of the smaller projects will be, but the major projects where the big dollars are, we don't have any shovel-ready currently.
Let me ask this along those same lines. Some of the ones, even the ones that are shovel-ready, are they prioritized?
Yes.
They will be prioritized.
And Dana's got it all prioritized out. And another thing to consider when we're talking about stormwater projects too is we're dealing with projects that are likely in the floodplain or floodway, and that's not necessarily going to change as a result of the project. So Penn Branch might be an example of that, where we're dealing with backyards that are in floodplain, and meaning there is a likelihood that there will be flooding. So we can do a project to address issues there, but there is still the probability that under a certain storm event, you could still have flooding.
So I think some of y'all are familiar with this, whoever was on council before. This was before the flood. I thought it would be important to bring this up. We have flooding issues around the city even before the big flood. Public Works created this map back in 2011, just highlighting some of the areas around the city. Everyone, like Joey had mentioned, Whaley and Maine, we usually like to look at how high the stage is. We have a camera at that location. 5 points up at Gervais and Millwood. We have a picture here, we have a map printed out as well. We have several areas, Harlem Heights, which is up in the northern part. We have been documenting complaints throughout the city well before we experienced the 2015 flood. So just wanted to show this picture representing the areas of town that experience these floods or these drainage issues. As Joey mentioned, we structured it with our 20 million, and we felt like this was our minimum that we could get away with on the really high priority projects. And I'll just kind of walk through Whaley and Maine upgrade. The estimated cost for that is $3 million. Right now, there are 2 8 by 6 foot box culverts. They need 2 30-foot by 6-foot culverts. So a massive project. Over by USC, anytime it rains, it seems like that area is underwater. The next project I want to highlight is Harlem Heights. Now, one thing I wanted to mention was this project has not been designed, so no engineering has been done on that, just like Joey mentioned on the life cycle. The next project, however, is designed. Harlem Heights. This has been a big issue with, we've had partners with DOT, City, and Richland County on addressing near Fairwold School, Levity Street, if y'all are familiar with that area off of Fairwold. The cost is $2 million. We're asking for $1 million in our CIP storm bond because we'd like to work with our regional partners to match that money, and that's something that Mr. Davis has been talking to Senator Scott about. That project entails adding dual 48-inch pipes to move the water out.
You better
of the
plan
areas
on
that are
2 million yourself.
What's that? Oh,
You
okay.
better plan on 2 million yourself.
We have a little bit of wiggle room, so we can definitely do that. We've requested it. Ms. Wilson sent the letter, and we're keeping our fingers crossed. Another project, and this one, like I said, is designed. Another project is the Gregg Street and Gervais Street. Another area that was identified in a lot of our flooding complaints is the area, not only 5 Points, but upstream of 5 Points by Constant Car Wash and Gregg and Gervais. This project, we have in the $20 and $40 million options, about $1.5 million to use detention somewhere upstream. Oh, this is fine. That's right. To try to help alleviate that flooding.
So where would you recommend the detention?
We had a study done, and what they had looked at was putting detention at a vacant lot at Cherokee putting underground detention under the Richland County parking lot, which Joey and I were talking about that. We're gonna have to reevaluate this because I'm not quite sure how well that would go over without, as well as another underground detention area at the USC parking lot. So you'd have to displace these people. So we were looking at maybe we can do something downstream. This study was done back in 2005, was it? So it's got some
Doesn't it
years.
flow backwards towards Gregg Park? I mean to Maxie Gregg Park.
Yeah, it flows down. It comes in through.
Comes down through
So,
Constantine Wash.
right. So
And
you've
it goes
got-
back the back way.
Tunnel and Five
So here's the
Points,
Gregg
and then comes
Street.
back.
Yeah, it goes through 5 Points, comes down behind Maxie Gregg, and goes all the way down. That's the Rocky Branch.
So yeah, so is Maxie Gregg an option?
Absolutely, it is.
The
Previous
overall plan,
council.
that was one of the
We
sites.
still can keep the beautiful wrought iron fence, but we could
But-
take a chunk of that out.
But, I mean, I think we want to evaluate that. That's not going to solve flooding at Constantine Car Wash. That's not going
Right.
to
So
get
we do have some
out
other
of 5 Points. You want to
flooding
catch it
upstream.
before it gets there. That's-
Well, you got to have it on both sides.
The overall plan looked at
That's-
Maxie Gregg as one of the downstream.
Yeah, you got to have it on both sides.
Right.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
You're absolutely right. Another project that we have in the
Was
20
that one
million.
the one, Dana, I'm sorry.
Uh,
Was that one?
No, the Gregg Street and Gervais Street is only a feasibility study at this point.
Feasibility,
And it's about 15
Daniel was a little tongue in cheek, but obviously I also believe we need to anticipate 2 million at Harlem Heights as well too.
Okay, and we have. We can-
Unless we have some hard, commitments,
Right, okay,
otherwise.
we can do that.
But
Another project we have is Wallace Street. In fact, Mr. Davis and Mr. Duvall, wherever he is, we were there last night talking to the neighborhood. We have
Well,
2
I believe
million
you can get it done.
funded right now. We're putting in an 84-inch pipe to help alleviate a lot of the flooding in the Cottontown neighborhood. We're between Franklin and Elmwood. We've got tied into an existing 84-inch as it goes under Bull Street. So that one, we have 2 million already in place. We've already done the design. We're ready to go to bid, but we still need the 500,000 to complete as far as the estimate. So this is in our 20 million as well. And then the Shandon property, we have had a lot of complaints and calls about the Shandon flooding issues, and it is a huge concern for the neighborhood. This project is estimated at $12.5 million. We have an east and a west drainage area. Flooding typically is worse at Amherst and Wheat, Monroe and Ravenel, Shandon and Wilmot, Monroe and Maple, and Hayward and Ravenel. And what they were talking about doing is adding additional trunk lines to get the water out of these areas that just are underwater anytime it rains. High-intensity rain events, we have to almost put barricades up. Robert's group does that.
Is this the same problem we tried to attack with the pilot project a few years ago?
Yes, sir. In fact, we were at Amherst in that project talking to the neighborhood. They were very receptive and said that it did help having that pervious asphalt, but it didn't solve the overall problem of.
Because you need it everywhere.
Yes, so, and it was still $1 million for the pervious project. So if we are to address the Shandon issues, putting an additional trunk line in both the east and the west side. One would be down Ott Street, and the other one would be down Woodrow and Maple. So those are the different ones, solutions. Additionally, on the 20 million, we have a Randall Street, which is in North Main area. And we have looked at that area, and that project would entail putting in a 48-inch RCP to help with the drainage in that area. So those are our high priority projects on the $20 million version.
So Dana, out of the high priority, out of the 20 million, only Harlem Heights has actually been designed. It sounds like none of the rest of them have.
And Wallace Street.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh. And Penn Branch is, I failed to mention that as well, but we have a lot of issues from the flood, where we have cracking in the wall, and we've got an analysis right now, so we're ready to go to construction.
That number's not going to be enough.
Well, we actually already have about $1 million from this year's.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so we're trying to supplement that. In fact, Penn Branch, on the $20 million option, we put in $500,000 for the high numbered options, we put 1 million. So we kind of adjusted based on that.
And I'm sorry,
For the-
before you go on, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Well, I was just gonna make one other comment. I know Howard was saying whether we do the 64 million or whatever, how it's just gonna take us a time, especially these ones that haven't been designed.
Right.
You know, the first year will take that. I would also, I guess, just offer that, you know, we talk about this with everything that we do, communication to our constituents is key. And I wouldn't let that hold up us saying, well, whether we go up to 64 or we do the whole, 90 or we do 80 or whatever, because what we need to do is make sure that during that design phase, we're out there at community meetings saying, this is what we're doing right now, giving them updates.
This is what you're getting.
Because people are always going to, during that design phase, not thinking anything's happening unless we're communicating that. But what I would hate is that we tend to continue to let these linger because they're not designed and.
Right. And that was one thing Ms. Wilson wanted us to look at, is if we were to tackle the 64 or the 93, we put in money for our program management to help us get that outreach out there and make sure these projects are done in a timely manner. So we have, if the 40 million, we added subterranean Catawba detention. We have a lot of issues with Rocky Branch near USC. We also added the Whaley Street at the railroad crossing right now. There's existing 13 by 10 foot box culverts, and they estimate they need 2 12 by 12 box culverts. That would be working with the railroad, so that would obviously be restrictions that we would have to work through. In addition,
Is that a new logo at the bottom, y'all? Is that been around for a while?
Logo?
Yeah.
I think so. Is this a new logo?
That's the Columbia Water logo.
Yeah, Columbia Water. Drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater.
Clem,
Dana, let me ask you a question.
Cute. No, I was just curious.
when we did the
wants a t-shirt.
reorganization, Mayor, Clint and Joey and others felt like that was the better. Can you go back a second?
Oh, to
Sorry. Yeah, to the first. So people understand better drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater versus utilities and engineering and all the plants. Anyway, that's what we did. Guess we should have told y'all.
You just seen it up there.
That was good looking. I was curious.
Was there any consideration done, and we're talking about the $20 million,
Yes, sir.
was there any consideration done for the Belvedere area?
We actually looked at that. Robert has had discussions with that neighborhood. Unfortunately, we don't have an easement or deed on that ditch. It's Richland County.
Was that what we talked about, Joe, in Richland County? Okay. Now,
Annex them in.
well, there's some issues with that, I understand.
We've annexed properties.
I gotta tell you, I think, I'm pleased, Mr. McDowell.
Yeah. I'm sorry?
Please.
No, I was just, Joey and I and Robert, of course, have had that conversation with persons in the community. And we ascertained then that was a Richland County issue. And we sort of hadn't resolved that, but it's constantly causing irreparable damage in that area, particularly where that pipe is and where that water, how that water gets out of the neighborhood. I just think there's, at some point, whether it's Richland County or us, I know it's Richland County, but of course it has to be, you gotta do something. That's what we talked about, I think.
And I will come here.
Sure.
Councilman, we did talk about that, but I also think that we have to understand that this is not the only issue similar to this that we're working on the city of Columbia. We've got roads
That's right.
that they still control the deeds on, and private people still control the deeds on. So, I think it's the will of council which way they want to go, but, we would have to accept the deeds before we do
Okay.
that.
All right. Just wanted to make sure we just kept that out there. Thank you.
I gotta tell you, if we're only talking about doing 20 million or 40 million of what we know to be $93 million in needs just in the priorities that we've outlined, I think we're spinning our wheels. I don't think it's sufficient.
We're talking about 64, not 20 or 40.
So,
Honestly, I'm not sure that that's sufficient either. So, if we can find a way legally, and our legal counsel step out the room, talk to our counsel as well, to bind ourselves contractually to a commitment to deliver on all these projects, that's what we need to do.
I support that.
So if we can
please,
figure that
keep-
out,
keep-
which,
yeah.
So for the 40 million, so you saw the 20 million, that is a high priority for us. But the 40 million, we would be able to address debris in Gills Creek, which Councilman Rickman, I know that was a concern of yours. We added 10 million for Gills Creek debris removal, also adding bioretention bump outs over at Sumter and Marion, handling, I mentioned the Whaley at Railroad Crossing, debris removal at Rocky Branch, and stream restoration. That would cover all of Gills Creek within the city limits. That is an estimate based on what we did for Penn Branch and Smith Branch and Rocky Branch when we had the NRCS funding. At the time, NRCS told us we were not eligible because it was Army Corps jurisdiction to do Gills Creek. But we went ahead and applied the same philosophy of how we bid out the debris removal from those other branches, and we did an estimate of approximately 10 million is what it would take to clear all the debris. So that was part of our 40 million. Our next step was 64 million. Like I said, we added the program management, and we also added part of our watershed studies that we had done as part of our environmental Cip projects. We have a list of 30 million per Smith Branch, 30 million for Rocky Branch on projects that can be done throughout the city. Now, some of it is, Joey and I were talking about it, we don't own the property where there's restoration and erosion control that needs to be done, but there is some projects that we definitely could take care of. So we wanted to make sure we included those in the 64 million. We'll have to look at that if we get that funding to see what would make sense as far as easement acquisition and make sure that we hit the highest priorities. And for 93 million, same thing, we would be able to do more of the projects in those watershed plans.
Mr. Davis?
There's some ongoing maintenance that's not included in here, and I don't know how we'll be addressing those. If you look at some of the problems we have in Earlwood, how is those are listed as what? Just ongoing maintenance? I know we're supposed to go in there and deal with some of the.
Well, that is a part of, those are identified in our Smith Branch Watershed Group, is looking at those areas that need erosion control and stream restoration.
They all lead into Smith Branch.
Yes, sir, and I can send those watershed, they're actually on our website for stormwater, our watershed plans.
Yeah.
But I can certainly send it to Erica and have her email those.
Let me ask you a question. I think I understand this, but Windsor Hill Evaluation Improvement, Rocky Branch, Lower Congaree, District 1. Is that right?
Which project is that? Windsor Hill. What we have is, for Windsor Hill, is a stream restoration and culvert cleaning, possible upgrades along ditch that runs along Danfield Drive, Mockingbird Road, Robin Road, Windsor Hills Drive, and up to Pine Belt Road.
That's not a District 1. Is that in District 1?
That,
It shows District 1. The dollar amount.
Pine Belt Road does.
yeah,
It is?
yes, sir.
Okay.
I've got the project
No, that's okay. I've never heard of it.
per district on here.
That's off 2-9, Pine Belt.
Windsor Hill is in Council District, well, it's actually
That's
two.
two, yeah,
Yeah,
Pine-
it's two.
Pine
Yeah,
Belt
that's
I
the
thought
two.
so, but that's okay. We can use the dollars, though.
Sure you can.
Yeah, I just, at first I've heard of it, so actually
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
a
a
mistake.
typo.
Thank you for pointing that
It's
out.
just a typo.
I've got to go, but I just wanted to say, Dana, before Sam asked that question, I was gonna tell you, this last few, from the 64 to the 94, whatever, you have, mainly it's the watershed plans.
Yes, ma'am.
And most folks don't know what that is.
Right.
When we talk about it, we need to give some, like, you know, the effect of it. Like, when we do this,
Sure.
these are some of the issues that'll be addressed so that people know that that does affect them.
Okay, absolutely. We can do that.
Okay. And confirm, city manager, are we confirmed that we start at 12 next week? Is that,
Yes. I think we're gonna have
okay.
Are there any other questions on the stormwater before I hand it over for water and sewer?
No, ma'am.
I think, just based on my knowledge of some of the challenges and the issues as a result of, even just some steady rain, it pretty much covers most of the areas that are perceived as being severe.
Which scenario are you talking about?
Oh, I'm looking at the entire list. It's just a question of how we.
We need to make an affirmative statement and commitment, whatever legal advice we get back from council, to funding all the priority projects. And if that means scenario one and locking ourselves in however we need to, because obviously, what Joey mentioned earlier about this, as we run up the lag time, we can't get in year 3 and we're finally getting fully engineered projects out of the door, and someone comes in here and raises cane. You're talking about raising my rates 20%, and you hadn't done the things and when we know that's the case right now, we gotta stand strong and continue moving forward with the program. And I just want to make sure that we fully internalize this right now.
Yeah,
and make a commitment to. I mean, I obviously want to make sure we take advantage of having our dollar stretch as far as we possibly can. It appears scenario one does that, and it does it with a much more deliberate approach that has at least impact on the consumer year after year. We're just going to have to stick to the plan, and that was the only reason we put scenario 5 on the table. But if we can get close to the same impact, just a little bit more money, and get $30 million more impact, and get all of our priority projects done, I'd rather go with scenario
two tasks, as I see it. One,
a lock-in.
One is whatever scenario we agree to, it's going to be important that we're able to stand on that commitment.
Amen.
And I think this, whether we publicize it or what, I would feel comfortable in pointing to folks and say, here is what you'll be getting for the dollar amount, whatever the impact is. But also, it's going to be, I guess I'm repeating this, it's going to be important that we talk about timelines. If there's an increase tomorrow, next week, the dirt turns whenever, but there's a method to that madness also, in terms of what we know we have to do to get them designed and contracted out and out of the door. I think all of that becomes part of our task of educating the public. I don't have a problem with that.
You get everything except those bottom two with the $64 million. The two you don't get are Smith Branch Drainage Area Tier 2 and Rankin Branch Tier 2. Why can't we do the $5 increase, get the $64 million started, and then 3 years down the road, put on that extra? The $64 million gets you cranked up. Would you increase O&M staff?
Goes back to the same issue everybody's worried about, but it doesn't get done.
You're getting everything done except 2 projects.
Then those projects are $20-something million a piece, right?
Well,
And so that means they're of significant nature that have great impact to those people who live in those areas. and they're gonna be contributing, and that's my point, is people are tired of the piecemealing and things not getting done. I mean, it's just,
You're gonna get a lot done. You're
Go
gonna
back to
get all these other
the
projects done.
various fives,
and,
five
and,
A,
and by the
B,
time we
C.
get there, we're
Is
gonna have a
that-
whole
is that-
other pile of projects.
Is that a separate feed? I'm sorry, I have, you don't have to go, we have the hard copies, you have us hard copies, don't worry about it.
Well, we can continue, we're not there today, but I guess we'll continue to discuss that point.
I just think
It'll come in the right
infrastructure and
spirit.
stuff like that, people
Do
are
it.
ready for us to handle.
I just think we're gonna have to have a airtight road show.
And Robert,
Hey, we got a
Go ahead,
good road
please.
show.
Well, we're here, but I'm saying,
You up front,
gotta go,
the rest of us behind you. Best road show ever.
yes, sir.
I think the mayor will tell you, if I'm up front, you know you got it.
Seniority has its privileges.
Yes,
Yeah.
lucky
Right.
number 7.
Handicap.
I'm the last one shot.
If you shot, I'm wounded.
You said you wanted to see scenario 5
Yeah, just wanted to see.
the options.
So what was five C? That was,
E- 80 million,
and that's with a $7 increase,
correct.
just under 680.
Correct.
Where's that?
One thing I wanted to highlight, and I didn't get to touch on it, council members. So the 40 million for scenario 3, the aggregate, the proposed rate would have been 8.23. Okay, and that becomes the peg or the marker to say where we're going.
That's $20 million?
That's for the 40 million, 823. The actual increase would have been $1.43, but the actual rate would have been 820.
Added to the 680 we got.
Yeah.
Say that again?
I'm sorry, that's scenario 3.
$1.43 added to the 6.
I apologize. 932
Yeah,
is the 40 million. My apologies. And the aggregate rate is 250, the increase. Okay? So when we go to these options, to get to that 93, we need to be in the range of $15, $16. That's what I didn't get to highlight before.
I really think the $5 is about
Depending
the
on how you
pain
do the
level we
bond
can
structure.
experience.
It's all depending on how you do the bond
Two.
structure.
$5, that's gonna be a big increase.
Can I ask this question, Robert? So for scenario 5A or 5D, where the rate stays the same
Where is that?
from FY 2018 to 22,
Okay?
those are the two where you, because you're just implementing the level.
12.
Okay.
Would the issue that they're trying to overcome about mind and future councils be an issue with 5A or 5D because the rate is gonna stay the same over the life of the program?
No, okay. So the rate will be passed on one go, and then it's going to be up to the staff and the council to get the projects done. But the program meets all the financial metrics and the objectives.
So 5D, if they were trying to do the 93 million,
Increase for the 5-year phase?
5D would be the option, it's just that it's a much higher increase.
Correct. Correct.
But they wouldn't have the issue that they're trying to overcome with mind and future councils because it's gonna stay, or am I interpreting that
Correct.
wrong?
That's correct.
So this is the option, really, if they, unless legal can help us determine that they could do scenario 1.
Correct.
Okay.
So
Correct.
is there a possibility of doing a one-time rate increase for the 5-year phase-in?
And there is, and we've done that on different occasions in different places.
How do you lock that in
It-
dollar-wise? I mean,
What you would do is you'd pass, it's called a multi-year, and you'd pass it and then tariff the rate increase, just as you do an individual year increase.
that
Oh,
becomes a
oh,
fine also.
no, I just answering the question. I can't legally confirm how it would work for South Carolina if there's legislation or laws that prohibit. But what you would do is tariff the multi-year increase and then pass it, and then it would be an automatic increase every year over the 5-year period. The benefit to taking that approach is from a credit market standpoint, from the wholeness of your revenues as a system, is positive because credit rating agencies view that positively. It's locked in.
And it should affect that number as well, too.
This the 64. So for scenario 1, yes.
Because you're not because you're de facto getting the same. Well, you're going back to scenario 1 stretch, for lack of better purposes.
So scenario 1 does just that.
Citizens get the benefit of easier increases over a period of time.
Yes,
you wind
sir.
up, of course, at a different place, but the rates are slightly higher, but they've been eased in over 5 years.
Yes, it's a phased-in approach.
So that's still the $64,000 question, whatever.
So the reason you want the answer is to be able to stretch it out versus 5D.
One-time rate increase with a 5-year phase-in.
But I mean, 5D is a one-time rate increase, right? It's just that it's higher, so you're looking for, that's why you want to do it this way.
We need to quit using percentage, and we need to use dollar
Dollar
amount.
figures. We need $93 million worth of projects done. Yes, sir.
Those are the dollar amounts
Okay, boss.
on
See you,
5D.
brother. All right.
You're wanting to get to this rate
See ya.
over multiple years, but pass it one
If
time,
that- if
one
that-
public
if that-
hearing on one ordinance.
If that rate gets us to $93 million worth of projects,
I think scenario 1A does that.
Scenario 1A does that. Correct. That's
Instead
90.
of doing $1.36 this year and $1.47 next year, you wanna do the entire
They would be doing
public hearing ordinance one time with the rate, but then this year, and then July 1, 2018, it gets this rate.
articulate them, tell the public exactly what we're voting on. This is the stage increase. Just question whether or not, if we covenant them in a bond issue. I'm not sure if it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. We've only asked the question 20 times, and usually get a kind of.
I think 5D does what you're asking.
$2 a month in year 5 to get what we're talking about.
On
I
this
mean, you
page,
gotta quit.
where?
It's not, it's 680.
This page.
It's 680 plus, you gotta read what the increase, go back to where you were, please, brother.
I'm trying to get 5D versus
On this
1.
page, but I guess what you're saying is you don't wanna go that high at one time. Is that, this would do what you're saying, I think, what you're saying.
Yeah, it does do that. If,
117% increase.
And there's a little time value
For what?
of money savings associated with that one time.
it's a $7.97 increase.
Spread out.
That's at one time. He said one hit. He said 5D one time shot. 1477. Vis-a-vis.
Well, wouldn't the rate be less if you did it all at one time earlier? Because you're trying to build up to the rate over a period.
I think so.
I think you have
Well, I
to,
think Steve's argument about the cheaper money.
Rates going up. You know that.
I mean, scenario 1, if you look at it, you're talking about $1.36 a month for the first year, $1.47 a month, I think. So, I mean,
Yeah, we just got to figure out.
the overall.
So yes, Teresa. The question is how do we get the same amount of projects done within the bounds of statute in the Constitution at the cost in scenario 1 with the impact of scenario 5.
$20 a month.
It must be any number of issuers, not even just across the country, but in the state that do multi-year commitments on rate increases.
Has to be.
It's got to be. I just refuse to think that's not the case, whether it's a utility or a regional authority. Madam City Manager, I'd hope that somewhere in these overall discussions with staff, that we have computed some value to the strain that these significant wet weather events have had on public safety resources, firefighters, 911, our public works, and the like. Every significant event we have that we're dealing with adds significant operating costs to and strain and duress to the entire system that I think needs to be reflected in our budgeting prospectively as well.
Yes, sir.
We want to keep moving and wait for Michael?
Hopefully Michael will know what he's walking.
Yeah, because I think it's more of just a positive question. Are there examples? I mean, that firm does a lot of work for a lot of different folks. Someone's done a multi-year commitment. I assume. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You want to keep moving? Yeah.
You may be excused.
Robert's got a plane to catch. Is that okay if we excuse Robert and have him by phone?
He's like, way to go.
Yeah, go. Go, go,
No, you
go.
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 We'll call you.
That's crazy. You should-
Yeah, it's okay.
we don't
I
want
mean,
you
I
to
think
bill
you
us
got
back
it.
for the missed plane fee.
That's right.
Thank you, Robert.
Good to see you guys.
Thanks, Robert. Good to see you.
Wait on the mayor to get back.
We on this?
Okay. We're still on the presentation that we handed out with the 2 slides per sheet. What we did for Dana's and my presentation, we just kind of threw all the water and sewer scenarios together so we can talk about projects. So, moving on to water and sewer. There's really only 2 options. I know, Robert presented both options Dave presented both, Robert and Dave, over the past few council meetings. And we didn't really discuss, it really puts us in the same place as far as O&M and as far as CIP. It's just a matter of how we get there. I don't know that we need to continue discussing this, or we can just move on to the CIP projects, or would y'all like to?
I thought we'd reached a consensus on scenario 1.
Scenario 1? Okay. Well, we won't continue that. Okay, so talking CIP, and I'll start on this slide here. Ma'am? So early on in the presentations, we presented basically a breakout of the CIP and the CIP categories. And the categories for wastewater, or the breakdown of the CIP is, again, this year, we have $120 million water and sewer CIP, $80 million for wastewater improvements, $40 million for water improvements. The $80 million wastewater improvements really covers rehabilitation projects. That's about a good, probably a third to half of our CIP is rehabilitation projects, capacity enhancement projects. We have to continue capacity enhancement projects because of our capacity assurance program, so we don't have areas where we can't add customers. So we have about $40 million in this year's wastewater CIP is to address capacity enhancement projects, and again, utility relocation. For the $40 million water, we've got about $15 million for the AMI-AMR project. It's a 3-year implementation. We're anticipating a $45 million overall project with $15 million a year implementing that project. Water quality, we've got about $14 to $15 million of construction projects where we're currently designing Earlwood, we're currently designing Booker Washington Heights. Rosewood, the next phase of that is to actually do the construction. And again, utility relocation for the water CIP. So looking at the mapping, and we've got these in hard copy form too, if we want to look at these individually. But for the water projects, what this basically shows is the water projects where they are. As I mentioned, Earlwood CIP, Booker Washington Heights. Of course, we've got our funding every year. We have with the Bull Street Agreement. We have funding in the Bull Street Agreement. Our Rosewood, we've got Pineview, Atlas Road, widening projects there that we'll be working with DOT as well as Clemson, and then some various other water improvements. But the majority of our water CIP is AMI, AMR, and the water quality projects. Moving on to wastewater. The large shaded areas here is our rehab. If we pulled up, and we can do that if needed, we've previously rehabbed a good bit of this area right here, which is Rocky Branch, Smith Branch. Our next phase of the rehab is to move up further into Smith Branch, and as well as up in the Gills Creek area here. And so that's a good chunk of our rehab project here. We've got the Bluff Road widening. That's a utility relocation we're working with, as well as, again, Atlas Road and Pineview. We've got various pump stations that we're rehabbing as a part of our CIP, as a part of our capacity enhancement. This Rocky Branch, we've got a multi-phase approach to upsizing the Rocky Branch outfall, and that allows us to continue development in the downtown USC 5 Points area. But we've got a major upgrade for the Rocky Branch outfall that needs to be done, that we're currently in design and property acquisition phase, as well as...
All these projects on here are ours?
Yes, sir.
So we're widening Bluff Road?
No, sir, we're not widening Bluff Road, but if we have a utility that has to be relocated as a result of the widening project...
Are you sure about that?
Well...
Let's keep this.
Okay. We can have a further conversation, but in order for us to relocate the utility, we've got a budget for it.
We're not budgeting to relocate any of those utilities. I'm serious. We're not, those are penny projects. Penny has to pay for those.
Okay.
Yeah. We need to make sure of that. That's over $15 million worth of improvements that is not. We've discussed this. I just want to make sure that we're not building a budget and increases based on the penny costs.
If we do not fund those portions of the project, we can definitely find other projects that we need to do with the funding. Yeah. So.
And what is the Innovista Transportation Phase 2?
Is that the Green Street project? Yeah. Okay.
What is it?
Yeah, they have a lot of those new student dorms, and we had to upgrade our sewer lines to serve through there, which we just finished the last week from Blossom.
Do we get reimbursed for that? Do we charge an impact fee for that?
We charge impact fee, yes, sir.
do?
Yes, sir.
So we get the recovery?
We'll get
portion of it?
recovery and expansion fees for the development. I forgot where I left off. At Crane Creek, we've put the new 48-inch gravity sewer line is now online. Our next phase of the Crane Creek is to build in storage, which we have. The design is current. We've got it in this coming year CIP to build the additional storage capacity for the Crane Creek outfall.
All the temporary stuff that we had in because of the storm, gone
The temporary pump station and the temporary piping, it's still there, but it's being decommissioned. We're actually going to look at, as a part of the North Columbia project, or as a part of that project, we would like to extend it to build in some additional pumping around North Columbia as an alternate bypass there. So we're going to take advantage of that piping being in place to work with the contractor to do that. So Angie's here to talk about the online bill estimator. We talked last time. We worked with Victoria to create an online bill estimator similar to what we did last year. It is up and running, it's live, and it's enhanced, so I'm going to let Angie come up and give us a tutorial on how to operate it.
We're gonna highlight the rate calculator from the city's website, and Victoria Kramer did such a great job. I only have to click a few buttons. So I have the easiest job here.
Use that facility. I lost that. Didn't make sense. That's gonna be about 18, 20 million bucks.
To start from the beginning, we just basically access the city's website and then go to the customer care page.
That plumbing service thing endorsed by the city, is that on our website? Clicked by one of my
says a friend
favorite
right now.
projects.
Oh, I can only, let me guess.
Which project?
We're gonna do inside city water and sewer, because again, the calculator is really good and it shows both. And on the left, of course, is the current rates, and then the proposed rate from scenario one that shows the 4.75% increase.
We don't have that.
So we are using 800 cubic feet to do the illustration because that's the average family usage. So on the left, it will be $59.29 with 800 cubic feet, and that's the current rate. And then you will see on a residential customer, $61.74. That's water.
Note that it's in city, so the stormwater fee is built in there. So depending on when we decide stormwater,
It's 680 now.
it's $680 now, so I just want to make sure
So
it's got stormwater. So you can see what your total bill is. It's got the city insurance.
And then it gives the step-by-step instructions on how your bill's calculated, so it makes it a little bit easier for the citizen to follow. Are there any questions? I don't want to read it step-by-step. Are you familiar?
I think it's wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that's a very helpful tool for folks.
Victoria Kramer did a great job.
that's where they go live, or is live?
It is live.
Start investing in bigger fonts around here. It's a point size on lettering.
Do we count the hits, numbers?
I got my reading glasses. I'm pressing at home. That's the problem.
Is people using it?
They are using it. It's been understood.
So, just so, I'm taking a step back, city manager mentioned to me, so guys, let's take a quick look, and then we can wrap up. I know we committed to each other, we'll be out of here by 5. If we made the long-term commitment, it's okay, Teresa, if I speak to that right now? let's look at scenario 1 and scenario 5B. Remember, let's look at, they both make the, well, the
5B
original
or not.
scenario 1 and 5B. They both make the full, we're in, the stormwater rate study update document.
I like 5B.
Pages 12 and 21. So they both are the $93 million commitment. Scenario 1 and 5B appears to, I guess, make a much larger increase in the first year, but would also give us a much larger amount of money available in year 1. Would we be able to get those projects out of the door, I guess? I know it's kind of split the baby. Would we be able to, I mean, obviously, we're still talking about a multi-month lag, but it does give you a lot more capital to get projects moving a lot quicker. And at the end of the program, actually wind up a little less in terms of the overall cost to the citizens in FY 2022. You guys have any thoughts on comparison scenario 1 with scenario 5B? How much cash does scenario 1 give us in 2018? Do you know? Okay. I say 42 million.
I can't see it.
I see 42 million in 5B.
5A and
I think it's 42 million too.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Oh, there it is.
5B.
It looks like,
I think you're right, Mayor. Scenario 1, I just wanted you all, if you were trying to get to that 93 million, you're really looking at scenario 1, 5B, and 5D. Clearly, I think
Scenario
5D
1.
takes you way far it's over that $5 mark. But scenario 1, it looks like the rates over time are still stretched out a little bit better or I guess, I mean, they both get you, I think, where you want to be. But it's that $5 increase over 5.
it hedges us against, obviously, so council is instructed that we can indeed make a multi-year commitment with automatic increases. Obviously, future councils will have to vote to ratify them. The failure to do so could indeed, threaten our credit rating. But I'm fine with either one of those approaches. Obviously, 5B, we jump in the deep end of the pool a little quicker, which I like.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask that we consider this. Either one of these will be incremental to some extent. So, regarding the issue of, or the question of whether or not a council could bind future councils, given the roadmap and the documented needs, I would think, and then also taking into consideration impact on our customers. If these projects, planned projects, would out of the box, I don't know that future councils would renege on that because they're already obligated. And there would be a schedule with documented needs for the system, with historic experiences with flooding and so forth and so on. I think anybody sitting in these chairs would I think have the insight to understand the problem and not renege on a commitment to our water customers.
Absolutely.
That's where I would come from.
Thank you. Any preference between the two with you all? If we were choosing between those two only?
Well, the problem with scenario 1, I can't tell what you actually get in year one. The,
The amount of money.
yeah, the dollar amount. Here I can see it, you know, when I look at 5B, I know we're gonna get 42 million in year one. You're gonna make a hell of an impact.
I'm fine with 5B.
Yeah, I mean, I think 5B is,
5B is an immediate $5 increase.
Yep.
And then 6.25% for the next 4 years.
As opposed to double-digit increases every year for the next 5 years.
which would relate to $1.34.
Yeah, it ends up actually lower than it would in 2022 under scenario 5B. We end up at $15.04. As opposed to 15.29.
I don't, tell me what.
Yeah, 5B, if you look at the very bottom, it shows that fiscal year 2022, we'll be at $15.04 versus under scenario 1, $15.29. So, those, and again, I do believe, everyone may not agree, I think the cost of capital is gonna go up. And the sooner we can get projects out the door, the cost of capital is gonna go up and the cost of construction is gonna go up. So,
Gotta address the issue, period. We haven't
the cost
addressed
of
it.
engineering always goes up. Yeah. They didn't hear me back there.
I need another week to chew on this.
I think we should lean towards
Huh?
5B or default.
I like 5B.
Yeah. That's a B as in boy. B as in boy. Yeah, recognizing in one singular ordinance and document.
You get more,
Bond,
5D, you
bond.
get more money in year one.
If we're worried about
It's
Billy
$8
getting stuff
a
out
year.
the door, and then
That's $8 a month.
yeah, I think we make a big commitment on the front end, on the first year, and then very modest increases the next 4. We tackle every priority project in the city.
5D, you have a one-time increase and you don't have an increase from then on.
We're gonna have, and I want to tell y'all, we're gonna have wet weather events between now and then being every single year on that calendar.
No doubt.
And we ought to be able to tell citizens with a straight face, not that we're thinking about or looking down the road that we're gonna do something, that we have a plan in place to address every single stormwater priority project in the city. I think that's our obligation.
So 5B with one public hearing that would spell out all of the future rates
Yes, ma'am.
for every 5 years.
And with the intention that we're going to issue public data
Every year
accordingly.
for 5 years.
Every year for 5 years, but it's one public hearing, one ordinance.
Yes, ma'am.
And essentially, you're saying 1%.
We'll have to go back and ratify it each year. I mean, we have to
Every year
ratify it.
you'd have an ordinance.
You'd have to, I mean, you'd have to do that, I would assume, if you're talking about not binding future
Go back and
councils.
forth this. We'd still have to, so council would still have to vote every year with a public hearing and an ordinance each year.
You'd have to vote to undo your previous commitment to the capital markets and your bondholders and everything else.
Or else.
Is that a fair statement?
6.25.
Please, speak, council.
There's our legal.
Sorry, I apologize for being in casual mode today as well. What the question that was put to me is, can you adopt today? Can you take one vote to put in place a laddered rate structure that goes into effect in the future? That would not be a commitment to raise rates in the future. It would be a legally agreeing to change the rates every year over a 5-year period. It would require an action by council to undo it, essentially to lower rates or change rates. What is the consequence of that? You know, legally speaking, there'll be some contractual obligation in the bond ordinance as to a rate covenant. I don't know what that would be set at, so that would prevent council from being able to take action in the future that would violate the covenant and the rate covenant. In addition, you'd worry about if you are setting your rates to maintain at a level that's higher than your legally required rate covenant. For example, now we've been targeting 2 times coverage for your water and sewer bonds in order to maintain the city's water and sewer rating. If the rates that are being put into place are intended to maintain a higher coverage level, then reducing rates in the future below that 2 times could have a negative effect. This is your point, Mr. Mayor, about a negative impact on your credit rating. And it would affect your ability to borrow money in the future.
But it would be an automatic increase, you wouldn't have to have an active council to do it?
That's what the question that was put to me. It's an automatic increase, so it's one vote today for multiple rates that have effective dates in the future.
Unless they want to break the covenant.
Correct.
So
Break the
that-
covenant or jeopardize credit rating.
And I assume, to the converse of what you were saying, if in fact we determine through future rate studies and needs of the system that X amount is needed to deliver on our program, we can adjust accordingly.
It's an evolving program, just like your water and sewer rate.
But they can vote when they vote this year to lock in, if in fact they choose 5B, the rates that are there, Michael, the $5 increase to 6.25% for the next 5 years, 4 years.
I've talked about this with Ms. Knox. I don't see any legal reason why you can't set into place. In fact, I was on the phone with Brent Robertson just a minute ago asking about what likely effects this could have or how the rating agencies would view it. He thought it would perhaps be a credit positive.
Favorably, right?
And he also reminded me that other utilities in the state have done it in the past. So
What happens in year 2023? Is it another 6.25 increase, or will we be at the point then where we're paying back the bonds with the 1504?
At least.
what does 2023 assume?
He's
I'm looking at
put on his
next
mighty
year
mighty
down.
Karnak hat. We don't know.
We go to 2022 and the rate is 1504. Does that rate carry out beyond 2022, or
But
does the
you,
rate-
at that point, you'd vote to
You come back
increase
and regroup.
the rate.
We're just looking at things all over again. We'll see where we are in the program. We'll see what our needs are. Whether we have an increase, we don't have an increase. Just
I hope I'm looking upwards
The
in
messaging with
2023.
5B may be to this point. I mean, it's just sort of,
not like that. Standing erect.
it's just a little, it's sort of ancillary, but because of what I see you all are trying to accomplish with the messaging with Citizens 2 with 5B versus 1, you're at a level percentage increase versus jumping all around. I think 1, you go from 20 to 16, 18. So that might also be better from
5B.
communicating.
5B. Yeah, we're starting off with a significant move forward.
year and then incremental increases.
One good year.
You get, the only thing I don't like it there is I guess you end up getting in that first year, you're getting a good 42 million. That's a good start.
And I think Robert and Jeff, Clint, and Joey can come back with
Someone's half the
the
program.
amounts of what you accomplish each year. 42 million the first year, but then you all can show the other years to get to 93 million. Is it showing 42 million in FY 18?
Yes.
Okay.
This is a summary, so each one of these years there will be a amount of cash.
Cash.
Issuance, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're talking about the CIP.
No, just the amount of the.
Yeah.
Another bond issue, FY 21, $23 million, and then almost $28 million of cash finance CIP.
Right.
And we need to lay down the friendly gauntlet to all of our sister communities, to our friends at the county, in Forest Acres, across the river, everyone we share these watersheds with, that everyone needs to make the collective commitment to improving stormwater quality and trying to do what we can to mitigate these major wet weather events. This can't be a singular action. If we do it collectively, then we really can make some improvements over the next century. So I believe this the next centuries, actually. But I think the movement that we make, we need to make sure this is articulated, Madam City Manager, in a missive to all of our sister communities, that we need them to act accordingly. We've had some opportunities and some challenges, meeting some of our needs, particularly over in District 4. And I believe I'll leave it there, and we just need everyone to step up. So let's make sure we message this properly, privately, and publicly, so everyone knows it's time for everyone to step up.
Well, thank you for,
Let's move forward.
the direction. We'll appreciate that.
Next Tuesday, are we coming in at 12, 2, or 5, or?
12, because I sent you all ready to stop, and we didn't even get to our general fund discussion, so we can take that up on Tuesday at 12.
We'll be at Spirit Community.
I'll shoot you some notes, and I'll be really nice.
That's left to be determined, I think. Thank you, gentlemen.
I think we ought to keep our dirty business in-house, Howard.
Somebody say second, please.
Second. Second.
This question, clerk, call roll.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.